year, but now that 2023 is done, we're going to look ahead to 2024
just a quick
already.
peek.
Yeah, just a quick there. So the best 2024 prospects, there's some familiar names in there, but where do you want to start? Do you want to start with Levi Ashcroft?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Obviously, the surname straight away kind of points to the conversation that, he's a Brisbane father-son prospect for next year. Much like his brother, very classy midfielder, good right in the middle, clean hands, smooth operator, knows how to find the ball. So I'm pretty much describing both Will and Levi at this point. But they are very similar. And just for Levi, last year he played in Sandringham's premiership win. This year he played in Sandringham's premiership win. And he'll play again for them next year, which unheard of a player having a chance to play in 3 straight Talent League flags. That'll be some effort if that's the case. Just a bit more on his year. Won Sandringham's best and fairest as a bottom major in a premiership winning season. So, has great leadership qualities, was an under 18 All-Australian player this season as well. So one of 3 of his age to make the best team of the season. So that's, including your Harley Reeds and your Riley Sanders and all those. So Brisbane father-son prospect will spend some time with the Lions over the preseason. And, assuming he nominates the Lions, they've got another nice ball winner coming through the ranks.
Yeah.
So
better than Will?
It's not a terrible argument. It's a very, like Will Ashcroft was probably the best player in his draft class last year. Didn't go number 1, but I think if he was available to everyone, he's probably going number 1. I think Levi could be just as good. It's certainly a pick 1 chance for sure. We're 12 months out, and a lot can change. As we've talked about, guys like Ashton Moyer, Mitch Edwards, these guys were probably in the conversations we're having now, and go out to pick 30s, so 29 30s. So this is just kind of a first look, but like I said, a lot can change with how the draft year pans out. But Levi Ashcroft is much like his brother. He's going to take everything in his step really well. Will entered the year as probably the best prospect and exited the year as the best prospect. So no surprises if Levi is similar. Yep.
Who else we got here? Finn O'Sullivan?
Finn O'Sullivan, maybe by many looked at as the premier player entering 2024. So Vic Country and Oakley Chargers, midfielder, good inside, clean hands, in and under. Obviously got to work with Harley Reid at Vic Country this year, so that was kind of get to see how well a player of Finn is coming up, playing alongside the best player in the year above.
Any relation to Connor O'Sullivan?
No relation. So like I said, he's a Vic Country, but is playing for the Oakley Chargers, and then 20 or more disposals, I think, in 7 of his 8 Talent League games this year. And Jagga Smith's another one we'll mention in a sec, but him and Kynan Brown and Smith were really clean midfield group for Oakley this year. And then O'Sullivan took out the Kevin Sheehan medal, which is the best player in his pool at the championships last year, so under 16s. And he's only really added to that through national champs, and again was one of those players that won an under 18s All-Australian spot as a 17-year-old prospect. So he's probably going to be a big talking point next year, especially if West Coast do hold number 1 pick again. And if you're putting a line through Ashcroft and a couple of these other kids, and then you're looking at WA's draft crop, they're probably not going to be picking a WA kid again with pick 1 if they have it. So is it going to be a similar situation to what we had with Harley Reid all year? I don't know if these kids will be spoken about as much as Harley will be. But it's going to be a lot more interesting to see who kind of separates themselves, puts them in that pick 1 conversation, and then obviously what West Coast do next time around. They get Harley in. If they've got an ex-team up in Finn O'Sullivan, it could be him that goes there. So, it's going to be obviously a big talking point throughout 2024 for sure.
Yep. And another name to look out for, just because it sounds awesome, is Leonardo Lombard.
So this is another academy talking point.
Mm-hmm.
A few might remember him as a 16-year-old who played in Gold Coast's VFL Premiership side this year.
Right, I remember now. Yeah.
Ridiculous that it was only his 3rd game. Like he hadn't been playing all season. He spent time with the Allies, spent time Queensland, spent time with obviously Gold Coast's academy, the Talent League, but just to be playing on one of the biggest games of the season and being so composed as well. Like he wasn't quiet. I think he had 10 touches, rotating midfield or forward or on the wing. And that experience is just ridiculous. And then you add him to a Walter, a Reed, a Rogers, and a Graham.
And he would have been 16?
Huh?
So he was 16?
He was 16 when he played.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
So I think he's turned 17 this year, 18 next year, and eligible for Gold Coast's academy. So maybe if for those that saw Jake Rogers, you can think maybe a similar player. But in the Future Stars game on the MCG on Grand Final Day this year, was probably one of the better players on the field. Really good runner, like for someone who's a contested ball winner, really good runner, and just grab the ball, run, bounce. So that was obviously a big tick for them. Obviously, he played as well for Queensland's under-17s game in a game against Vic Country's under-17s, and was again pretty promising. And then averaged almost 25 touches and 3.5 tackles for in the talent league as a bottom major. So another academy talking point over the next few years, and it's going to be interesting to see how he develops. But yeah, and another one as well was that I probably could have mentioned with Levi Ashcroft is Sam Marshall, Brisbane academy kid, who could be a top 20 mix type player. So there's like we said, the academy conversation is not going to be ending just because this year's draft did.
Yep.
So another one to watch.
Yep. Jagga Smith.
Yeah, so as mentioned before, Jagga Smith, Vic Metro and Oakley Chargers. I think he's second in the talent league for disposals per game behind Riley Sanders. So this is 17s and 18-year-olds. Never dropped below 25 touches per game for the Chargers, and he had a 5-game run of 30 or more disposals, and 2 of them included 2-goal outings. So
that's great consistency.
30, yeah, you look at him, skinny little kid, but oh my god, just quick, just reactions and work around the contest. Can probably play a bit outside as well, and that's what he did a little bit for Vic Metro, just because they probably didn't have a huge star-studded midfield group this year, Vic Metro, but they still want to see some kids have a go in midfield, and then he probably took a step back. But he's helping lead Vic Metro's midfield group this year, alongside someone like a Levi Ashcroft and a Josh Smillie, who's another one we'll talk on in a sec. But another one had a good game at the Futures Stars game as well, which is where kind of recruits get another last look before the end of this year's draft year for next year's prospects. Had 21 touches, 3 clearances. Just a real exciting midfielder, plenty of guile, cunning type of player. So, like I said, he's so skinny, but a bit like, I guess, your Nick Watsons. There's more than what meets the eye there.
Yep. And you just mentioned it before, so Josh Smillie, is it?
Smillie, yeah. So 2 L's, IE. So he was part of Eastern Rangers group this year, so alongside Nick Watson, and played obviously a lot of midfield with Caleb Windsor and Christian Moraes, who is another bottom major. So he's probably one that could have made this list as well. But Josh is probably the standout in that group. Or I guess between him and Moraes. Windsor obviously got drafted in the top 10 this year, but he's a tall midfielder, 194 centimeters. And by the way, in this kind of crop that we're talking about, there's only one that's not a midfielder. Mm-hmm. And it's not Josh, even though he's 194 centimeters. So big, obviously tall player, and used that size to his advantage. 26 touches, 4.5 marks this year. So when I say that, it's marking and tackling, where he can use his kind of physicality. A couple games for Vic Metro this year, like I said, so they kind of did rely on some of those bottom majors at the Carnival, and had 21 touches a game. Had another 21 touches in the Future Stars game for Team Nick Natanui, who I think were the winners. He was one of those guys that certainly helped on that showcase performance. So I think some might have him quite highly. Like I said, we're kind of looking at a top 8 here, and he's one of many really promising midfielders, but he's not one that's attached to clubs, and he'll be one that a lot of clubs have a lot of sights on this year, next year.
Yep. And a name I think I've heard of, Tyler Welsh.
Yeah, so this is Adelaide's father-son.
Yes.
So he's the only non-midfielder on our list. Key forward, 191 centimetres, sort of son of Scott Welsh, so former Crows forward as well. So has had a pretty good 2023 season. Was at the Woodville West Torrens this year, 27 goals in 10 games in the under 18. So again, playing bottom age in the SA, and then would play national champs for South Australia. Kicked, I think, 5 goals against Vic Country So pretty decent outing for a 17-year-old on the highest national carnival level. Has made the move to Adelaide's sample side this year. So we'll still be playing at the same level, and I might even get a look at get some sample experience, but move to the Crows as part of like a rookie program in the sample. So he'll obviously work a lot more closely with some AFL listed players, and get to kind of hone his craft a bit. But he's going to be one that the Crows will be preparing to nab in next year's draft, and he certainly could be a pretty high end pick. So another father-son that's at the top end for 2024.
Now, some more familiar last names. Ben Camporeale.
Yeah, so Ben had twin brother Lucas as well. So both of these boys tied to Carlton as father-son. So a few more, but Ben's probably the one that gets the edge here. Sons of Scott Camporeale, obviously 1995 Carlton Premiership player. But Ben is both out at Glenelg, so in South Australia, but no issues there with the Blues getting them as father-sons, and they'll even have them training at Princes Park over the summer as well at some point. They've spent some time with the club before, but as part of like AFL Academy, and obviously as Carlton is doing their due diligence and checking in on them, they'll have them over in Victoria at some point. Ben can probably play a bit of inside midfield, but played on the wing or even a bit across halfback in the Future Stars game, which is where he's kind of been his best performance so far. 30 touches, which was a game high, and took out best on ground honours. I think he had 8 rebound 50s, 5 inside 50s, 8 marks to go with it. Clean, speedy outside runner, but can actually play inside in a little bit. So 25 touches, 5.5 marks, 4 clearances, 4 inside 50s, 3.5 tackles from his 13 under 18s games for the Tigers this year. AFL Academy member alongside his brother Lucas, who can be quite a similar player. Maybe Lucas might be a bit more outside or a bit more defensive, but that's going to be good for the Blues to have those two boys come in. Obviously teammates of Ashton Moyer at Glenelg, so they'll have a couple of familiar faces to welcome, and it's going to be quite a nice pickup for the Blues. And Nick Austin said on Tuesday that they're pretty well prepared to have those boys come in as from a draft points point of view. Got some future picks in at the draft period this year, and all goes well, they should be able to match bids for both of those boys.
Yep, beautiful. And rounding out this list, we have Sid Draper. Yeah,
so younger brother of ex-Collingwood midfield forward Arlo Draper. So Sid, I guess another midfielder, can be pretty tall. Doesn't look like the biggest body, but he can be still quite physical. So he took out South Australia's MVP at the National Champs, which
huge.
That was won by Harley Reid at Vic Country, Ollie Murphy at Vic Metro, Dan Curtin and Colin O'Sullivan. And then you've got Sid Draper, a bottom major, winning it for South Australia at some effort. Captained Team Nat Nui on the Future Stars game, so they obviously see him as quite a leader, and had 25 touches as one of their best. Selected in the under 18s All Australian side, so along with O'Sullivan and Levi Ashcroft, those were the 3 kids that broke into the under 18s All Australian side as bottom majors, which obviously doesn't happen too much. Had 24.8 disposals per game, 12 contested possessions, and 3.8 tackles in his 4 matches for South Australia. At 17 years old, he's actually played a few games for South Adelaide's seniors, so getting sample senior action at 17 years of age is not something that happens all too often. Had I think 14 touches a game, but one of them was he had 21 disposals as a 17-year-old playing against some of the best state level league talent with some effort. So another one of those midfielders. If you're ranking them quickly off the top of my head, I think I'd have O'Sullivan, then Draper, then Ashcroft. And then maybe Smillie, Lombard, Smith maybe in that mix as well. Welsh is probably the 8th out of those, and can be quite hard to compare him to the rest of them, but that's probably a quick order if we had to put them in. But it's going to be quite a tight-knit group, I think, at least at this point in time.
Yep. All right, so that wraps up